between the two, I'm happy to go with Shaheen actually, just to keep Anderson out. Uh,
That's cruel. We're back on ESPN Cricinfo Dream Team. We thought we couldn't better the last episode where we picked Bangladesh's greatest white ball 11. But we're going to try to better that now. We've got Karthik Krishnaswamy, Alan Gardner, and Andrew Fidel Fernando to essentially pick a very simple team. A team of the currently active test cricketers that would win a series in India. Now, I find the timing of the recording of this episode a bit curious because in a couple of test matches, Alan Gardner may very well just cite the current England team and say, that's it. Why do you need to look anywhere else? But we get the point. No team has won in India, test series in India, since that England side of 2012-13. It's a hard place to win a series in. So we're going to look around the world and see what World 11 would challenge India. I'll come to Alan. I'm sure I've taken away that one line, haven't I, Alan? I'm sorry.
Yeah, you've foxed me. I'm just going to start with Rory Burns, Dom Sibley, Zach Crawley's fit, maybe he comes.
I must say, even you're struggling to name the 11, even though we just did a test match. You can't get the words out, can you?
I mean, there are probably one or two other players around the world that will get a look in. I'm thinking we might pick Joe Root. I'll just push that one out there and for the rest of the panel.
Since we're talking about left field, no one gets more left than KK and me, and I'll leave that to the interpreter. But what are we doing about the Pakistan players? Up for selection? Eligible for selection, KK?
They should be. I mean, we are not the BCCI or the PCB or the Indian government or anyone like that to come in the way of their selection. So,
It's a dream team. The key word, the operative word being dream. So,
yes, I dream of an India-Pakistan test match India or Pakistan with like adoring crowds filling the stands and no COVID-19 to keep anyone away.
Wonderful. He could have almost put that in a sonnet, in the form of a sonnet, Karthik Krishnaswamy. But yes, fair enough. So if the Pakistan players are very much going to be up for selection here, in which case that would make for a very interesting conversation, given it's not a large chunk of non-subcontinental players, Andrew, that we're really looking through. There's a good chance if we open it up to Pakistan players, there might be a decent representation there.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the one thing is that we don't have any recent history of how they would do in India specifically, with playing with the SG ball, with all of the baggage that comes with India, Pakistan playing in India, all of the pressure and all of the kind of hype that would come with a Pakistani player playing there. We don't have any of those, but I guess we have to go by their numbers in Asia and find kind of unusual ways to measure Pakistan players and figure out how we fit them in, despite the fact that we're not really, looking at them on an even ground as we might other players.
Okay, now let's start with the top of the order, shall we? And I'll go to KK more often here, given he is our local man. He's the man who's seen all these visiting sites come closely, and now is losing count of how many of those players are still active in Test cricket. But KK, let's start with your openers. Who we got?
So I wanted to include Azhar Ali in some way, and therefore I am throwing him in as an opening candidate. And the other one I'm picking, he didn't have like a hugely flash series in India in 2016, but he played a really good knock in Kanpur. I'm talking about Tom Latham here. He's a damn good player of pace, as we know, but he's also a really good player of spin, and spin can come on early. He plays the sweep beautifully, and he's shown during the 2016 tour that he can handle himself against Ashwin and Jadeja at their best. So those would be my two, but then there are other names too, like Dean Elgar would come into the picture after that knock in Visakhapatnam, especially. Yeah. David Warner doesn't have a particularly good record, so I'll be picking him. And Dimut Karunaratne, but he's a really good player, but again, I don't know if I'd pick him above these other candidates I've named.
Latham makes a very strong case just in terms of how well he played spin when he was here. The challenge, as we've seen on Dream Teams in the past, is generally in international cricket at the moment, test openers don't really put their hand up to make all-time 11s, and that could be a challenge for any dream team that you pick, whether it's an Indian team or not. So you've got names that KK has already thrown up. Latham and Elgar have done well in a shortish span of time in India. David Warner hasn't, though there are some pitches that we should take into account when we look at numbers for an Australian team and maybe even a South African team in the last 10 years on how batting numbers may be a little harsh on them. So we've got two names from KK, Nazar Ali and Tom Latham, with Dean Elgar as an honourable sort of close number 3. Fidel, let's go to you.
Interesting point about Dimut Karunaratne. I think I was looking up his stats in India. They're really bad. I think out of 6 innings, 90 runs. But we have seen him. I mean, he is very good at playing spin. Sorry, I was waiting for this train to go past. Right?
You should just let it on. This is the most entertainment on the whole show.
I mean, he does have fantastic technique against spin, though. I mean, we've seen him do well in against top quality spinners, including Ashwin and Jadeja, and probably one of the most spin-friendly pitches we've seen in the last few years. At the SSC, he scored 140 odd. So it's not as if his failures in India are to do with his inability to play spin. They may have something. There may be something else. Maybe his playing seam bowling, especially against kind of the prouder seam that the SG ball has. So I would still say he's in the conversation, but it's hard to displace Latham because he has a track record in India and because he's scored runs in Sri Lanka, he scored runs in the UAE. He scored runs, all over Asia against Asian opposition. So I just don't think that there's really anything you can say about that Latham selection. So I think I tend to agree with KK. Though I will throw Keaton Jennings' name in there just before Alan gets in there.
Yeah, sure. Why not? You can pick a bunch of openers from England who impressed in India and then suddenly got missing when they get home again. 174 runs for Tom Latham. 194 runs for Tom Latham in 3 innings in 3 matches in India, an average of just over 45, 3 half centuries. Looked good in the time that he was seen over here. So let's go to Alan Gardner if he wants to already throw in Dom Sibley's name after that one fine effort in Chennai.
No more. My wild card, which has been stolen, the thunder has been stolen there by Fidel, was obviously Keaton Jennings. Coming overall, Ed Smith on the selection panel. It probably would be there'd be a stronger case if he hadn't averaged about 26 in the domestic Bob Willis Trophy for Lancashire in the last season. So yeah, would be going on sort of a historical record. Very good under the lid at short leg though as well. So perhaps that's something that keeps him in the conversation. I too, like KK had, Azhar Ali pushed up to open. Averages 52 in Asia, I think, and obviously no India record to go on. But as our colleague Danielle wrote recently, he should be opening for Pakistan rather than coming in at first drop. So perhaps we can give him that opportunity. I was kind of hovering over Dimuth because I've got a soft spot, but Latham, I'd be very happy with that selection. He's a fine little player, and we've got a bit of right and left hand there, and we've got a bit of subcontinental know-how with Azhar's opening alongside him. So that seems pretty sensible. I mean, I'd be tempted to ask Raz to Cook to have a net just to see what condition he's in. He's still playing domestic cricket. And I was sort of tempted to look up Aidan Markram after he scored 100 in his last innings. But the rest of his record isn't that pretty. So.
Yeah, fair point. So it looks like Azhar Ali and Tom Latham have a vote of confidence with an honourable mention for Dean Elgar. But there is a right-left hander. You've got a subcontinental presence. You've got Tom Latham, who's been good against this Indian attack. And therefore, it looks like we are on the same page for our openers. That was very quick. This is going at lightning sort of speed by Dream Team standards. Now let's get into the meat of our batting, shall we? And this should be for a more fun conversation. There are quite a few players that do put their hand up. The obvious 2 names that we'll start with are Smith and Root. And all of a sudden, when we normally take Williamson in the same breath, you have to ask yourself whether he does merit a place in this team. And then, of course, there is the Fab Four, if you exclude the Indians, is Babar Azam. So where do we go on that? Fidel, you can start on this one.
Well, I mean, just on recent form, it's hard to look past Root, right? Like his average in Asia, in any case, is better than his career average, and he's even on this trip he's kicked it up a notch. Looked almost unoutable in Sri Lanka ahead of the India series in the double 100 first up that led to a win. I mean, it's kind of almost impossible to leave him out. What I will say for Williamson is that I think he's maybe like underperformed in India, but then and I don't see how his technique is any less suited to India than say even a Babar or even or anyone else that we Smith that we will have in that conversation. I think Williamson is someone who will just be that engine room for you, and I think where Root may go through like a few more ups and downs, Williamson, I think, is a safer bet. So I would be really, really tempted to go Williamson 3, Root 4. In any case, Root doesn't bat at 3. So number 3, I think, is Williamson's. And I would be very, very reluctant, despite his less than stellar India performance. I just think the character that Williamson brings to a team, and I would be very, very tempted to make him captain as well, like off the bat. You want Williamson leading that team in India. My 3 and 4 would be Root and Williamson. Babar might make it at 5. And just because I want to watch Babar, I want him to have like more of a body of work before we put him up into the Root Williamson kind of league. Yeah, those would be, and then so yeah, Babar and Smith. So that's another debate. But yeah, right now 3 and 4 Williamson, Root.
Okay, so that's interesting. Williamson test debut was in India, wasn't it? And you thought at that time this guy's going to score runs every time he comes here, KK. And after that 100 in Ahmedabad, which helped New Zealand save the test, we haven't quite seen Williamson have that sort of impact in terms of runs. His average, 35 odd in India, doesn't quite add up to the reputation of Williamson. What do you expect of Williamson? Would you still have him in your team?
So Williamson at his peak, right? He toured India once when he was at his peak. And on that tour, he played only 2 of the tests. He missed 1 with injury, I think. So it can happen that and he came up against Ashwin, who was bowling like a dream. He got him out 4 times out of 4, I think. So that can happen to you, right? But otherwise, look at his record in the subcontinent. I mean, even that 100 in Ahmedabad, which you spoke of, he can play. The guy can play anywhere, and the guy plays spin beautifully. And yeah, there's absolutely no reason to not pick him. And if you ask India, who would you want? Yeah. Who would you not want to see at number 3 playing against you? The first name that's going to come up is Kane Williamson. So, I mean, come on. You would have to pick him. Yeah.
You'd have to pick him. You go with that, Alan? Williamson gets into this team, even though the numbers aren't as impressive as Root and Smith.
I know I've been a bit ruthless here, and I think we all love Kane, but I think we're all guilty of loving him a bit too much here. He's a nice guy, he's a pretty batsman, but he averages 35 with a pretty reasonable sample size in India. He only averages about 46 in Asia, and there are a lot of candidates that average better than that. My engine room, my preference for this sort of 3-4-5 lineup would be Root, Smith, and Babar. And yeah, like I think we've got to leave aside the New Zealanders are nice. We like to be nice, but and Williamson would be a good captain if we're going to go down a sort of Brearley route. No, I mean he's a great player, Williamson, but I've not picked him, and I want to get Babar in this team because I want to see Babar taking on India in their backyard.
This is very interesting. So. Is it going to be a toss-up between Root, Smith, Babar, and Williamson? I'm guessing there's no way you can play all of them, can you? So you have to make a call on whether. I'm guessing Steve Smith has got the vote of confidence from anyone. Is there anyone? You can put your hand up by show of hands. Anyone who's saying no Steve Smith in my 11? Anyone? Well done. Okay, so that saves us a lot of time after he played one of probably the best innings you'd see from an overseas player on a ranked turner in Pune. Won the ESPN Cricinfo Award for the best test innings that year. I think we'll have quite a few of those. So we have Smith in this team. So you'd expect that. So then if it is a toss-up between Williamson or Babar, KK, if you have to pick one of the two, are you still going to back Williamson?
Yes.
Simple. Fidel?
No, I would still back Williamson. I mean, I would, as much as I would love to see Babar play, right? That would be just Pakistan's first kind of great batting hope in a while. Playing against India right now, it would just be insane. I think there's a romance about that whole battle that would go down. But if you're picking a team on proficiency, on things that have already been proven about, players like Williamson have a huge catalog of of successes to their name. Babar is just coming up and is kind of this shining bright light that we all want to see play in India. But I mean, the heart says Babar, but I think the head still says Williamson.
Okay, that's interesting. Now, given how stuck up these modern day cricketers are about batting 3 and batting 4, you think between Smith and Root, neither of them would come out of 3. So you need someone to bat 3. So Williamson takes care of that. He settles the debate. Then good luck to figure out who bats 4 and 5 with Root and Smith, because that just changes their world. Now let's think about 6 and 7. And let's see if we've got room for Shakib Al Hasan before we talk about a wicket keeper. Anyone tempted with Shakib at all? Or are we looking at other alternatives? Alan?
Yeah. I mean, I've been sort of juggling 2 names, Shakib and Stokes. Shakib, I don't think has played India enough to really give us...
For some reason, they don't invite Bangladesh over here much. We're too busy playing England every 6 months and Australia every 4 months that Bangladesh doesn't just get much of an invite. Yeah.
Yeah, and yet there are millions of people who are interested in Shakib's every move. So I think they're missing a trick here. But yeah, I mean, his overall record is better than Stokes in Asia, as you would expect, and he provides a spin option, which is sort of leaning me that way. But then Stokes is, X factor player, has done pretty well in India. I mean, I suppose my thinking would probably be swayed by where we go with the bowling attack and what slow bowling options we have, because there aren't tons of those either. But yeah, for me, it's between Shakib and Stokes.
Just think that Shakib, he's not played a lot in India. That's not his fault. But if he does play a lot in India, I think he'd do okay. Not to mention the balance of this side. I don't know how many left-arm orthodox spinners would command a place in this team. In which case, if you have Shakib, Fidel, would you take him?
I mean, he would be the obvious choice. I am tempted to say no Stokes and disagree with Alan there, because I think I have another seam bowling all-rounder that I think I would back in that situation, but we might get to that later. He would be the obvious choice.
Talk about Angelo Matthews, because I'm really curious to know if that's what you're talking about.
No, but Angelo Matthews is a bit... On the batting front, yes, he would be a good choice, but you cannot rely on his bowling anymore. So I wouldn't say they're kind of like-for-like players. Angelo Matthews, you kind of have to think purely as a batsman who might give you a few overs every now and then. Shakib's going to give you a lot of overs and going to be a legitimate part, a bona fide part of that bowling attack. The one Sri Lankan name I might throw in there is Dhananjaya De Silva. Doesn't have a big kind of body of work in India. I think scored 100 in a really good 100 in that kind of
Delhi,
in that test, that kind of slightly acrimonious test in Delhi, that was kind of where pollution kind of dominated the headlines. Rear guard 100, really good technique against spin. Someone who seems to in the last few months have kind of turned his batting around, or last couple of years turned his batting around a little bit. Definitely the best player to watch in this team, but then he bowls off spin, which perhaps later in the conversation we'll be thinking about Nathan Lyon. And if we have Lyon, do you want another off spinner in the team? So I'm again tempted to go with like the more obvious option, which is Shakib. But if we don't go with Lyon, I think Dhananjaya De Silva really comes into the conversation as being that kind of extra spin bowling threat. And he's someone who you can rely on to bowl those like really tight overs, and when things are happening, becomes a genuine wicket-taking threat as well. But obviously not a bowler on the level of Shakib, but maybe on the batting front, he offers something.
Before I go to KK, I'm still curious. Who's the seam bowling all-rounder that we're going to talk about in a bit?
Jason Holder.
Right. Okay. Sure. Yeah. Right. We'll come to Jason Holder. KK, Shakib, yes or no?
No, because I think he's a pretty decent test batsman. I wouldn't say you'd pick him on his batting alone. And his bowling, I think he tends not to bowl too many overs when the pitch is flat, and he leaves Taijul Islam and Mehdi Hassan Miraz to do the bulk of the bowling when the pitch is flat. And when there's on turning pitches, he's a really good bowler, but then who isn't? So I don't think he really pulls his weight as a bowler either in Test cricket. So I wouldn't pick him. Right. I mean, Jason Holder, I was also kind of thinking of him. I'd just think about the balance of the team in terms of where would he bat then who would you want your wicket keeper to be? So the batting ability of your wicket keeper is a big question as well. I mean, for me, it's between Stokes and Holder because I think I'd pick two frontline spinners, which means I'd want my all-rounder to ideally be someone who bowls seam. And so it's between Stokes and Holder for me. I'm okay with either. But again, that would depend on the keeper probably. And if it's Stokes, he'd bat 6. If it's Holder, he'd bat 7 with the keeper at 6. So yeah,
fair enough. So it looks like
can I
get the votes. Yes.
Can I just make the case for Holder?
Yes, please.
10 wickets in India at 11.5.
Yes.
And if we broaden it out to Asia, he's got 22 wickets in Asia at 17.95, and his bowling those incredible stats, those Asia stats, 17.95 is an outstanding Asia average, and is a decent sample size, not a great sample size. But his bowling has improved in the last couple of years as well. We know this. His bowling has been outstanding. So even that 17.95 probably doesn't do 100% justice to where he is as a bowler at the moment. His batting not quite as good, but on those figures, I would almost just pick him as a number 8, and as part of the bowling attack. Again, someone who can who's good on the leadership front as well. Just gives you something different with the ball. I would 100%. As someone who also saw Stokes win be part of a match-winning kind of series in Sri Lanka and help turn one of those tests around. I still think that the stability that Holder offers I would for sure pick him over Stokes.
Yeah, I mean, he's only played a small sample size in India, but that's no reason for us to believe the way he bowled even in that short series. Does that put him over Stokes though? That's the only question. And it becomes that old debate of what you're looking for. If you're looking for more batting, you tend to lean towards Stokes. You're looking for more bowling, you tend to lean towards Holder. So what does this team need more of, Alan?
I think you need bowling to win in India. And I had Holder in my team actually at number 8. I mean, I'd prefer him a bit lower down. I'm not sure his batting's quite up to scoring hundreds in the subcontinent. I mean, he scored a fantastic double hundred against England, in the Caribbean. That I watched a lot of a couple of winters ago. But I think you do lose a bit if you push him up. But I'm concerned about bowling and what spin options we have. So I'd probably be more inclined to pick Holder for the wicket taking. And I mean, as Brian Fidel's kind of already laid it out, but tall guy, he's going to hit the pitch hard and exploit any kind of up and down, any vagaries in the surface. Probably better. I mean, Stokes is handy in those conditions, but Holder's record, I mean, I think he has developed as well, swinging it both ways, cutting it, and that sort of thing. He's a very canny bowler. The leadership qualities stand out as well. So I'd be happy if we're pushing up the keeper, and I think there are a couple of good options for guys that can hold a bat at 6. Then Holder at 7 wouldn't be a bad thing in my view.
Sure. So it looks like Holder commands his place as the all-rounder, which we can only fit one in, because we would look for a 5-man bowling attack surely with 2 spinners. So let's come to that in a second. Now let's take the debate towards the wicketkeeper, the man who'll bat maybe just above Holder. This is an interesting chat. Alan, who have you got?
Well, Ben Vokes has an immaculate record and keeps getting better while he's out of the England side. He's going to play the next test, so we might get a more fair reflection of how he goes in Chennai. But I mean, the other guy that jumped out at me was Mushrik Rahim. Again, doesn't play much against India, but I think has 100 in India, is just a very good batsman, a very good keeper in these conditions.
All right, interesting. KK, let's go to you. Keeper options.
This is a hard one. So Mushrik Rahim is probably like my number 1 candidate because he's played really well in India. He got that 100 in Hyderabad, and last time when they came here, he got a couple of 50s if I'm not wrong, and he looked the best of the Bangladesh batsmen in sort of conditions that helped India's fast bowlers particularly, right? So he'd be there. I was also leaning towards Quinton de Kock, but he's a guy who can get you a brilliant, like genius 100 like he did in Vishakhapatnam, but he's also a guy who can go through like a run of low scores immediately after that. And if I want someone at 6, I'd probably pick Mushfiqur ahead of him. The other guy was, I expected big things from him when New Zealand came to India in 2016. But because he's a really good player of spin, BJ Watling. But then he struggled against Shami and the reverse swing. So he gets caught on the crease a lot. And like, if it's at the stumps and like skidding through, he's probably not the best batsman against that kind of bowling. So yeah, Mushfiqur is a great pick as far as I'm concerned. Yeah.
I'm glad we've got Fidel on this show because it may be sounding. I think we're thinking on similar lines. So let him say it first before me.
No, are you saying Dikwella? Because
No.
I'm
Okay.
not thinking, I was thinking, Mohammad Rizwan is the guy that I would go for. Just because I don't trust Mushfiq behind the stumps. Like, good batsman behind this, you want your wicket keeping, you want your wicket keeping batsman to be a proficient wicket keeper. I don't think he is a good one, and I wouldn't trust him behind the stumps. So I would go with Mohammad Rizwan. Which, I mean, again, early in his career, still don't know, 100%, where his ceiling is or where, how all of this will pan out for him. But 6 innings in Asia, average of over 50. So he doesn't like immediately strike you as being someone that's going to score a lot of runs, but he finds ways to get himself scores. And that's what you want out of a wicketkeeper. Has batted with the tail pretty nicely in the past. I would say actually he's probably my standout candidate, because all of the others, for reasons that KK and Alan mentioned, have flaws. I mean, Folks, it would have been nice to see how he would have gone if he had played, the last couple of Sri Lanka tests and had more of a chance. But I'm not willing to pick him just based on one series in Sri Lanka. Rizwan, I think, just has the fewest kind of obvious weaknesses.
Yeah, and the reason I sort of teased it up was, given that there is no real strong contender who ticks every box, I was wondering if I could tempt you all to go a little left field on this one. And I know Dinesh Chandimal doesn't keep in Test cricket as much, but he's played some innings that Indian fans would remember in Sri Lanka, in India too. I don't know if he's as good a glovesman. Fidel can fill me in more on it, but just given, would you need your keeper to just give you a little more batting? Yes, you need your keeper to be solid enough behind the stumps. Is Chandimal that good? Is anyone tempted at all in light of not too many great options for Chandimal as your keeper batsman?
I mean, just because he hasn't kept for a while, this is why it didn't even really occur to me that he would be a candidate, just because he hasn't done the job in such a long time. It's an interesting choice. He also has become kind of like a very almost like a stodgy number 4, which, how would he do at number 6 again? I'm not sure. That I think one of the innings you're mentioning is that 162 in Gaul, where he came out and he kind of changed the complexion of that test match, which with Sri Lanka went on to win. He's not that batsman anymore. Like, he's not quite that player anymore. He's become.
Are we picking players in their prime though? Are we picking them?
Are we picking them? But we're picking them now to play a series in India right now, right? So for that reason, I think he's not necessarily a number 6 anymore, and he's not necessarily a keeper anymore.
Nobody wants Tim Payne. No? R. Ashwin wouldn't mind Tim Payne. Nobody wants Tim Payne. Behind the stumps, all right.
Just for the sledging, yeah.
Sure. Are we happy?
You'd have Dick Queller for the sledging if you wanted to have someone for the sledging.
Yeah,
there's no contest.
There are a lot of candidates.
Dick Queller,
If we open that up, there are a lot of keeping candidates suddenly to do everything other than actually just bat and keep wicket. There are plenty of candidates. But are we happy with Rizwan then? Fidel and KK seem to be quite pleased. Alan, it's not like you can do much even if you disagree, but Rizwan, okay?
Yeah, I can just keep the Bangladeshi hardcore on side again by voting for Mushfiq. Rizwan really impressed me. Everyone, I think, watching it in England when he came over in the summer with his glove work, probably wouldn't want him quite as high as 6. But he's a very tidy batsman, and obviously got his maiden 100 the other week, so he's in form. So I like that pick actually. I'm down with Rizzy.
All right then. So Mohammad Rizwan commands the gloves in this side, becomes the second Pakistani player in this dream team, along with Azhar Ali. Will he get one more compatriot? We'll find out in the bowling. So let's go into that. We will discuss the fast bowlers, which should be a little more interesting a conversation. And yes, there is a second spinner that I think we need to figure. But Nathan Lyon, let's again, any hands up on anyone who's not going for Nathan Lyon in this team? Everyone's got Nathan Lyon. In some ways, KK, it's fair to say if you picked an all-time 11 as well to tour India, then Nathan Lyon might be right up there in terms of making that 11, let alone a current player's one. Fair enough?
No. I mean,
No?
I wouldn't pick him for an all-time 11.
Hmm.
You look at like some of the spinners from the past who have fantastic records in India, like Richie Beno, for example. Or,
Sure.
yeah, but right now,
It's
also,
easy.
I think he still has a few limitations as an off spinner. But he's the best of what's going around right now, so he walks into this team.
Okay, he bowled that incredible spell, albeit on a turning track. But I mean, that 8-4 in Bangalore comes to memory among a number of other performances. And yes, like KK points out, it's not like there are a bag full of spinners commanding a place in this team. Nathan Lyon, Alan, simple as that, the best off spinner in the world, and therefore he makes it.
Nice.
Or
Yeah,
is
I
it-
think so. Yeah. I mean, Dom Bess has got a better average in Asia, but yeah, I mean, Lyon's record is very consistent. I think it's probably the best way of putting it. He's had his tough times as well, but I mean, there aren't many kind of overseas spinners or overseas bowlers that have taken kind of 90 odd wickets, I think it is, in Asia. And he averages, solid average. I mean, I was looking at Mehdi Hassan, but a very good bowler in Asian conditions, but tough. His record in India, again, a limited sample size, but I think average of 100 plus. A finger spinner who I don't think is available to us, but Steve O'Keefe obviously has one of the few active spin bowlers who has won tests in India effectively. But no, I mean, Lyon's the kind of standout slow bowling pick, I think.
All right. In which case, who else could accompany Nathan Lyon, and what will be an important second spinner to take a call on? So Fidel, let's go to you on that one. You can give me a word on Lyon as well, but who partners him?
Yeah, I mean, sold on Lyon, but Yasir Shah seems the most obvious candidate. Yeah, I mean, he turns the ball in the other direction. He's a wrist spinner, so you would suspect that both of them bowling in tandem would be a daunting prospect for any team. And it's just that thing that you just want to see how he would bowl in India, how he would do there, just because we haven't seen it. And I suspect Rasir would be up for that challenge. Occasionally, he's kind of been, for example, in tours of Australia, he hasn't really shown up. But I think for an India series, Yasir, it's really hard to look past him. He's just won so many tests for Pakistan. In Asia, average of 26.44. Yeah, and that would be my pick.
All right, KK, Yasir Shah to accompany Lyon.
Yeah, he's kind of gone off the boil in terms of like his control a little bit. But I mean, I pick him even ahead of Lyon as a spinner in Indian conditions.
Okay.
He's not played in India, but like I would suspect that, he's done so well in the UAE and on pitches that turn more and give him a little more bounce as well. He'd be really, really, really good. So, yeah.
It's a rare combination I have together, right? Proper off spinner, proper leg spinner. You tend to think of whether there's a left arm spinner that commands a place ahead of, well, maybe not Lyon, but certainly the second spinner. And
if Rangana Herath was still around, I'd pick him. Yeah,
of course, Rangana Herath might still very well be around. Who's to say we won't see Rangana Herath back? So
I had hopes from like Akila Dhananjaya as well, and like the few tests he played before he got reported for chucking, he did really well as well. So if he comes back and if he gets back to performing as well as he did before the ban, he'd be in this conversation too, I think.
Right. So we happy with that, Alan? The leg spin of Yasir Shah to accompany Nathan Lyon. I'm trying to think of if there's any left-arm orthodox spinner that you mentioned. Steve O'Keefe, of course. If you look at current sort of form and whatnot, I've been asked by by our good friend Shresh, who convenes this, whether anyone is tempted to go for Rashid Khan. We did see Rashid Khan in one test match here. It did not end well for Rashid Khan.
Yeah, I mean, Rashid Khan was sort of a name I circled over, but I think, I mean, experience in India, test experience, full stop. And if we're looking, I mean, obviously a peerless limited overs bowler, but we're looking for a lot of overs control. As KK says, if it's spins big, then that's not really his forte. Yasir's the leg spinner, I think, who will go well there. I mean, slightly reticent in that leg spin in India, I don't think has, the best record, but Yasir, I think, is there aren't tons of slow bowling candidates anyway, as we've kind of discussed. I mean, Mitch Santner's a left arm option, but I don't think he's going to take many wickets. Might score more hundreds than he takes wickets, but very happy with Yasir. I mean, the balance on my side, actually, I'd gone with Shakib and Lyon and just picked fast bowlers, but that's probably just because I'm English.
Yeah. All right. So it is Yasir Shah and Nathan Lyon. Just a shout out to my good friend Rakeem Cornwall, who averages 12 in India. Let's never forget that. But it was against India. So, well, there's that.
It'd be a big presence.
Yeah. Maybe after the West Indies tour here, properly, with Jason Holder and whatnot. Okay, let's go to the seamers now. So we've essentially, if you want a quick recap, Azhar Ali and Tom Latham at the top, Williamson and Root to follow along with Steve Smith. Batting order could be versatile there. Jason Holder, Mohammad Rizwan, the keeper batsman, and Yasir Shah and Nathan Lyon are our two spinners, which leaves room, of course, for the fast bowlers. And let's start with Alan on this one. Jimmy Anderson still has so much to prove. So I wonder who else he's gone for. Alan.
Well, I mean, Anderson's coming off a decent bit of form, I'd say. And we've, I was looking at the record of, his record and Stuart Broad's record before this series. I mean, Dale Steyn is kind of way out in front, as Fidel has made the case previously, but is retired from tests and may even have retired from cricket. I mean, he seems to be a fisherman or kind of a skateboarder these days, as much as it would be.
Moved on to better things.
I think, yeah, exactly. He's living his life. But then there are quite a lot of other candidates. I mean, I think Anderson is out there in front for various reasons. But you've got, Tim Southey has a good record, surprisingly, in both Asia and India. Mohammad Abbas never played in India, but is impeccable if you're looking for just control and, the subtle movement, on subcontinental pitches or Asian pitches. Holder we've got in the team, and then Pat Cummins and Jofra Archer are the other names that in terms of pace. So I had picked all three, Anderson, Archer, and Cummins in my 11. I think we can only go with two of them.
All right.
Unless there are other candidates.
Let's go to KK. Maybe we'll hear some more candidates. Of course, you think best bowlers in the world, you think Pat Cummins. He's not played a lot in India. We know that. KK, Josh Hazelwood's also had that one tour. The numbers aren't so bad. Do any of them warrant a case to make it to this side?
Cummins. I mean, that comeback test in Ranchi.
Yes.
Like, he'd not played in 6 years. Comes back on the deadest pitch in India. And, he was carrying in India's batsmen there. Like, he got Kohli, he got Rahane in like a very short spell. And briefly, India looked like, okay, they're going to fall well short of Australia's total, and like briefly he gave them a shot at like winning that game. And it was his first test match back in so long, in conditions that he'd not ever bowled in before. He was bowling basically off cutter bouncers at 145 kph. So you need to be special to do that, and he walks into this team for me. And I think Anderson has a great record in India, but I don't think I'd pick him. Like, he's won. It's a weird one, right? He's won England Test matches in like from 2006 in Mumbai to now in Chennai, right? And he's like there are a lot of reasons to pick him, but I still wouldn't, because I think in Indian conditions I'd still go for two guys who are out and out quick, who can do a lot with the ball as well. So one of them would be Cummins and the other would be Rabada. He didn't have the best of tours of India in terms of his numbers in 2019, but he bowled really well, and sometimes that happens. And I'd argue that if he were to bowl in India with an attack, with colleagues in his attack as good as Cummins and Lyon and whoever else we've got, I think he'd do brilliantly. So I'm going with Rabada and Cummins.
All right, Rabada and Cummins. Now, yes, that he's not got the best record in India's Kagiso Rabada. We can almost remove that series in 2015, where there wasn't necessarily a lot for Kagiso Rabada to work with, pitches that were on offer. But would you still pick him just on quality? Cummins had a decent series in Bangladesh as well, didn't he? When he bowled in sort of on dust bowls in Chittagong. You've heard a lot of names, Fidel. There's Mohammad Abbas. KK has gone Cummins and Rabada. Tim Saudi does have a pretty good record, and there is, of course, Jimmy Anderson. How would you go?
And I mean, KK has obviously endeared himself to thousands of England fans by not picking Anderson after the last test that he had. I think I kind of am tempted to agree with KK, just because Anderson's kind of longer term record in India, he averages over 30. I think he's a fantastic bowler in Asia. He's picked up skills, and even on this trip, he's picked up things that he wasn't doing in Asia before. But then at the same time, you want your bowlers to be wicket takers. I think I'm with him on Cummins. I would pick Cummins in this team. But do you even England didn't really open up with Anderson in this last test. They opened up with Archer and Leach, if I remember correctly. So they primarily saw him as a reverse swing and holding bowler in the early going, and relied on Archer and Leach to be the bigger wicket taking options with the newer balls.
Well, they didn't open with him in the second innings or the fourth innings. Fidel.
Yeah. Right, but I guess the benchmark is Steyn, and there's no way that like anybody opens without Steyn. I'm just trying to kind of get as close to a Steyn as we can. Cummins gets, I think, the closest out of the bowlers that we have at the moment. I'm kind of tempted to throw in Shaheen Shah Afridi's name in there, just as as I think his Asia average is better than Anderson's for now, I think. Again, someone without a lot of work in Asia, but someone who I think with the new ball could be a genuine wicket-taking threat at any point in any game in Asia and in India. I'm tempted to throw his name in there and see where it lands. I'm kind of leaning towards him. I'd say Cummins and Shaheen.
Okay, Shaheen, Afridi, I'll get a reaction on KK on that in a second, but it looks like Cummins has got 2 votes. So you happy with that, Alan? Cummins comes in. Now, if you had to pick one more, which one are you strongly advocating? You're going for Anderson still? Should be part of this side?
Yeah, I'm very happy with Cummins, and definitely putting my hat on Jimmy here. I'm going to have to just fight the corner for all right-thinking people. Rabada has a terrible record in Asia, and isn't even that quick. I mean, I was watching commentating on the Rawalpindi game, and Rabada's and probably dialing it down deliberately, but we're talking sort of 130s. Throughout his spells, it doesn't have the skills of Anderson in terms of reverse and cutters and control, I think. I think Jimmy's well out in front there. But bowls with the new ball, as we all know, bowls reverse, as Shubman Gill and Ajinkya Rahane well know. I think we've got a stats piece coming up in the next couple of days about how his record in Asia since turning 30 is probably equal with Dale Steyn's, to be honest. He's sort of peak fitness. We've got Cummins for pace. We've got Holder for height, but I think we want that skill, that ability to swing it both ways, ability to bowl cutters, and a thinking bowler with all that experience. Wicket taking, Anderson has got, I think, more wickets than any active fast bowler in the subcontinent. So, I'm definitely picking Anderson of the remaining for my last slot in this team.
Very passionately made by Alan Gardner, very well articulated. Has he convinced either KK or Andrew Fidel? Fernando KK is not very often convinced on the Dream Team. It takes a lot. So if he is going to turn, then Alan, you've really made a strong case. So let me see if Fidel, who threw in Shaheen Shah Afridi's name as, of course, the left-handed option too, whether he's tempted to go with Alan Gardner's plea for Jimmy Anderson. Fidel?
I mean, it's a tough one because I think Anderson is the most, if you're thinking about it, the most complete bowler. I mean, let's leave Cummins aside because we've all agreed we're going to have him. But of the ones we're considering, like Shaheen, Rabada, and Anderson, it's really come down to those three. He's definitely the most complete bowler. He's the one who, when it's a completely flat pitch in India and it's Kohli and Rahane are piling up massive runs, he's the one you can come in and see if you can bowl a maiden. You wouldn't trust Shaheen or Rabada with either of those. You wouldn't trust as much as you would Anderson. But then I still see Rabada and Shaheen. I think Alan's kind of take on Rabada, I tend to agree with. While he's a good reverse swing bowler and while he should have the gifts that make him a really good Asia operator, he still hasn't quite fit those puzzle pieces in and made himself a really good Asia bowler. He's got many years ahead of him. I'm sure he'll get there eventually. But it's so difficult because I'm just tempted to go with Shaheen only because it's kind of an unfair playing field. If we were saying Anderson after 30, that's when the kind of bowler Anderson gains that skill and becomes fully grows into himself. Whereas I think Shaheen has so much potential to grow. And also right now, with the new ball in Asia, I think I would still trust Shaheen. So I think I'm gonna stick to Shaheen.
Okay, so Alan says Anderson, Fidel says Shaheen, KK. If it's a three-way deadlock, I know what to do. So let me see where you're gonna have. Are you tempted to go with either of those arguments, Shaheen or Anderson, or are you sticking with Rabada?
Between the two, I'm happy to go with Shaheen actually, just to keep Anderson out.
That's cruel. That's evil.
Right. No. But no. The other thing is, Shaheen, he swings a new ball, left arm. Fidel said, you wanted someone to bowl a maiden. Who would you call up? I think Shaheen's got a lot of control for a guy who's early 20s right now. So I don't think he's lacking in control in any way at all. So on that front too, I'm very happy to have him in the side. And he's got a lot of skill. So, why not? The only thing is for Indian pitches, I'm looking at who's the closest guy in the world to Mohammad Shami, who's not Indian. And that would be my dream fast bowler to bowl in India, like a skiddy bowler but he's not played that much test cricket. But Hassan Ali is kind of like the closest bowler anywhere to Shami, I think. But no, I am happy to go with Shaheen.
Okay. And so you're going for Shaheen. That will seal the fate of Jimmy Anderson.
Yes.
The other thing to say about this is that Jimmy's going to be rested for the next test, right? So Shaheen is someone who I think almost any selectors would play right through a series.
But that's just England doing their thing. You can play. If you and me had to pick a team, we just pick the best.
But England doing their thing is kind of like part of the whole deal. You have to take the way that your team is managing you.
Yeah.
Anderson wouldn't want to be rested for the next test.
Correct.
But if he weren't, he'd come back in the third test and struggle to bowl like 15 overs in a day.
Oh,
and
you know what, KK?
Yeah.
This is so tricky. By the time, when depending on when you watch this in the India-England series, and I'll reiterate, we are recording this in between the first two tests. This could either look brilliant or this could look very foolish. Anderson could win them the series in Ahmedabad in the day-nighter, and we'd all be looking awesome that way.
I think we're making no friends in England.
How about that? What if there's a day-night test involved here, right? I mean, we've got to pick a team for sort of all conditions. So let's not seal the fate of Anderson, because there's a 12th player to pick, who's invariably the player that you pick. When it comes to these sorts of test teams, you often play around with that one spot. Okay, what if you don't want to play two outright spinners? Are you looking for the other all-rounder alternative, right? If you take the space all-rounder versus the spin all-rounder, or do you simply take the fast bowler that came closest, or the player that came closest to this 11? In which case, is there room for Anderson if the combination would dictate to play just the one spinner, which is very rare in India, but you never know. So who's our 12th man for this? Are we going to give Alan Gardner at least the dignity of having Jimmy Anderson as our 12th man? That itself is so indignifying of James Anderson. But yes, Fidel, 12th man?
I think for 12th man, you want to go all rounder, right? Like that's really so you have as many bases covered as possible.
Right.
So then it's out of like Stokes or maybe Dhananjay De Silva if you're going a little bit more left field. Anderson is the guy who came closest to the team, but you're looking for something different from your 12th man. You're not necessarily looking for just that. That's not the criteria for a 12th man. It's the one who can maybe give you something else in the team. So I would say Stokes or Dhananjay for 12th man.
Okay, Stokes, Dhananjay, or Shakib. Karthik?
Shakib, yes, sorry. Yeah.
On the topic of someone who gives you something different as a 12th man, I don't know. I don't think his record in Asia, I haven't really looked at it that closely, so I could be wrong. I don't think his record is that good. But Neil Wagner.
Yeah, he's not got a good record in India.
Yeah. I know. So, I mean, I think about like including him just as an annoying guy who bowls short balls when nothing is happening off the pitch and all of that. But I tend to agree with Fidel that you need an all-rounder. And given that we have Holder in the team, I'd pick a spin bowling all-rounder then. So, and since we've got both bases covered in terms of a guy who turns it into the right-hander and one who turns it away, could be either like Dhananjaya or Shakib, but I'd go with Dhananjaya De Silva.
Wow. Okay. All right. No love for Shakib, no love for Anderson. Alan, I'm with you, man, on this. It looks like Dhananjaya might even get in the 12th man spot ahead of Jimmy Anderson. Let's go to you for your rather insignificant comments for who should be 12th man.
Well, let me just tell you that Jimmy Anderson doesn't want your 12th man. This insult to all Englishmen. I mean, I'm still very concerned about this Shaheen pick. I think if we're picking a touring team in 4 or 5 years' time, maybe, but we're picking one for now. And I mean, his record is okay. In Test cricket, and he's a fantastic prospect. But I mean, if you're looking for someone who's not Jimmy Anderson, if it's anyone but Anderson, I'd be going for Jofra Archer ahead of Shaheen Afridi. His record is pretty slim in tests all round as well. But we've just seen some of his ability in the Chennai Test. He knows about playing in India through the IPL. He bowls quicker than pretty much anyone, and he provides control. Bowls with a new ball. So yeah, I would still throw him in ahead, and possibly as 12th man. In terms of having options, though, I think, having a spin bowling all-rounder makes sense. And I would vote for Shakib. Dhananjay is a lovely player to watch, but he bowls like off spin that averages about 50. I'd that's just a backup batsman, really. I'd definitely take Shakib for 12th man. And I wouldn't take Shaheen in the team, but I've said my piece there. I think Jimmy is already off sulking. So
right. He's already uninstalled the Cricinfo app, so it doesn't matter.
Just one small
yes, KK.
I just realized that like we don't have too many left-hand batsmen through the top 6.
Just Latham.
Just Latham, yeah. So on that count, probably Shakib sneaking in ahead of Dhananjaya.
Good on you, KK.
I mean, I can be convinced into saying that.
I had to find the reason. You had to find the reason. We couldn't find it for you. You had to find it. But I'm glad.
I'm not convinced by his bowling on like good flat true pitches. I don't think he bowls enough.
That's because he's the boss of the Bangladesh side, right? And over here, you're going to have Smith and Williamson and Holder and everyone else keeping Shakib honest.
I tend to think. I mean, as much as I enjoy watching Dhananjay play, I tend to think Shakib is probably the guy as well. After you reminded me of him, so I think, just the wealth of kind of experience that he brings, and as Alan said, he's much stronger as a bowler, and Dhananjay is kind of like, he can do a role for you with the ball, but he's not the kind of wicket taking or like substantial bowling option that Shakib is. So
thank God, thank you, the two of you. I'm only looking for what happens on our social feeds when Dream Team episodes go out. And on that note,
is there any way we can geo-block this from going?
And I'd like to tell all our lovely Bangladesh viewers here that this 12th man does not mean that Shakib is incapable of making the 11. It simply means the minute that there are 3 spinners that need to play, Shakib makes the team. And that happens so often in India, right? You need the 3rd spinner. You may not need the seam bowling all-rounder. You may very well need Shakib Al Hasan in there. So that's the balance. That's what we need. So Shakib makes it. I'm with Alan Gardner entirely on Jimmy Anderson. So getting that.
Can I just say one thing?
Yes.
Shaheen Shah's Asia average is 26 point something, whereas Jimmy's is a lot higher now. We've
got to judge that fairly over a longer period of time. Surely.
Yeah. No, that's fair. But I still think with the new ball, Shaheen does things that Jimmy doesn't. I think that's what kind of really puts him to the top. Yes, all-round bowler as an asset to a team that doesn't have like other options. I think Jimmy's fantastic, but I still the romantic joy of watching Shaheen bowl.
Yeah, it's an exciting prospect, isn't it? I mean, Hazelwood's not done too badly in India. Saudi's not done too badly in India, and yet we're going for the X factor of Shaheen Afridi. Right, so let's recap our dream team then for the best current 11 from players all around the world still active in Test cricket to come and win a series in India, Test series in India. Azhar Ali, Tom Latham are our opening pair. Kane Williamson, Steve Smith, Joe Root is the meat of that batting. Mohammad Rizwan with the gloves, Jason Holder with the all-round responsibilities, Pat Cummins, Yasir Shah, Nathan Lyon, and Shaheen Afridi with Shakib Al Hasan as the 12th man who could possibly come in if this side needs more spin bowling, another left-hander, or just another alternative option in terms of a spin bowling all-round instead of a seamer. Commiserations to the likes of Dean Elgar, Dhananjay De Silva, Kagiso Rabada, and last but by no means least, Jimmy Anderson. I'll tell you what, when you look at that team with Azhar Ali in it, Rizwan, Yasir Shah, Shaheen Afridi, we should keep 4 or 5 backups, shouldn't we? Just in case there's a problem in the visas and we need to suddenly account for 4 or 5 guys. Maybe then, Alan, you and me will get to see Jimmy Anderson play in this team. If you have 4 guys that don't make it into this, then maybe they'll be kind enough to get Jimmy Anderson in. All right, it's been brilliant. Big thank you to Alan Gardner, Andrew Fidel Fernando, and Karthik Krishnaswamy. But before we wrap up, we do have the last responsibility to actually appoint a captain in this side. So you've obviously got contenders in Williamson and Root. Alan, I really hope that what you say right now is something they can agree on. They've given you nothing on this whole show. Let's hope they can agree to Joe Root as captain. Is that who you're recommending above Williamson?
Well, given his record captaining in Asia, 6 wins out of 6, I don't think there's any argument, is there?
All right. Fidel?
I think I'm willing to throw Alan a bone on this one.
It's almost out of mercy, right? It's the pity that
I feel so bad about the Anderson thing.
Yeah,
I'm just like,
as you should.
I'm willing to throw Alan a bone.
KK is a man that doesn't believe in.
He does. Look. I think Root has. It's an incredible record that England have, and it's crazy that we've picked only one England player when they've won their last 6 matches in Asia.
I'd like to put an asterisk and say, when you say we, you mean you and KK. I'm distancing myself from this team entirely now. Yeah, go on.
But still, yeah. I mean, I think Root has more experience winning in India, so you can't really.
All right.
Can't really case for
KK does not have these emotions of just gifting away captaincy on sympathy, on pity, because he feels bad for Alan Gardner. The only way I can see KK giving this is if he doesn't care enough as to who's captain. So let me see if he indeed cares. Jason Holder's the other potential candidate. KK, Root, or does it not matter?
I really don't care. I mean, for the laughs, just for the laughs, I might give the captaincy to Smith.
Sure.
But failing that, I'm happy for anyone. I mean, anyone.
Doesn't matter.
Shaheen Afridi as captain. Yes.
Right. I will finally just bring in my veto power and just give it to Jimmy Anderson. I chose to stay away from this. Sometimes I double up as panelist. I'm like, no, this is great. The three of you have so much experience and credibility. You should be taking this call.
I have none after this, but
no, that's fine. You true to yourself. That's all you can ask for.
I don't think either of us are ever getting an England visa after this, KK.
Yeah.
You can just strike that off from all the other countries that are anyway putting you on a wait list or a no-fly list or whatever. Right. That's our team then. Azhar Ali, Tom Latham, Kane Williamson, Steve Smith, Joe Root as captain, who would pick Anderson if he was going to make this call. Mohammad Rizwan with the gloves, Jason Holder, Pat Cummins, Yasir Shah, Nathan Lyon, Shaheen Shah Afridi with Shakib Al Hasan as our 12th man. This was ESPN Cricinfo's Andrew Fernando and Karthik Krishnaswamy's dream team, and Alan Gardner and me watching with a heavy heart. Thanks for watching, guys. Put in your dream team and the kind words that you have for all four of us. We'll see you again soon.